Hey everybody, welcome back to another phone call with freedom. I am your host, Sarah Jane. Thanks for showing up in my corner of the world where we talk the universe. Today I wanted to talk about the higher self. I think this is an extremely popular topic. We hear people talking about it all the time. My higher self, my higher self. I wanted to pick that apart. What does that actually mean? Just because we hear it all the time doesn't mean that we understand fully what that looks like. So I kind of wanted to pick that apart, create a space to really get clear in an effort to assist everybody to build a strong relationship between themselves and their higher selves. As always, if you're familiar with my work, I am never telling you that I am right or wrong. We are on a ball floating in space. I'm giving you my perspectives. It is your job to observe them, take what feels right, and leave what doesn't. Continue on your journey. Educate yourself as much as you possibly can, and create a belief structure that serves your survival. What that looks like is going to be different to everybody. But I'm sharing details of what my belief structure currently looks like because, again, that's the objective. Create a belief structure that serves your survival. This world down here is not the easiest. This realm is quite a realm to be in, right? It's definitely filled with dense, heavy energy. Lots of distorted thoughts, and therefore a lot of us experience a plethora of difficulty in our lifetimes. Years ago, I really believed that I had no answers, that there was no rhyme or reason, that maybe I was being punished. I actually believed that being here could possibly have been a punishment. And I remember being in those spaces. I remember what that felt like. And to observe myself from the position I'm in now, to observe myself where I was, it's incredible. Because really, the reasoning for my pain was a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness, a lack of an answer. Over the last 6 or 7 years, I've stripped my mind of all the beliefs, sat in a void for a little bit, didn't know what I believed, and slowly began rebuilding a belief structure. And you're on a ball floating in space, right? So how expansive can you go? How expansive do you need to go? Do you want to go? Depends on what your experience is for this lifetime. Once I was in that void, it was a really good space to be, because being in a void and not believing anything is better than believing something that's not truthful to yourself. I think I always knew that I was missing pieces to the puzzle, but I just didn't understand how it all fit together. I didn't understand what that even meant. And was it possible to regain those pieces? When you've been conditioned to think that you're nothing and you're not capable and you're not worthy and you're not abundant, when these are all the things that you're taught from an early age and conditioned into your mind, these are the beliefs that we have. So it becomes very difficult to even look for the missing pieces because you don't think you're worthy of it. How crazy is this, right? Excuse my French, but it's a mind fuck. It really is. This realm is a complete mind fuck. So what ended up happening was I hit a traumatic event. My father became very ill. It was a very unique situation. I was very close with him, and it was him and I. He was adopted, so we really didn't have any family, and my parents divorced at a young age. So it was really just him and I. Without going into details, that was 13 years of having to learn how to feel in order to survive. because there was so much pain there that if I didn't learn how to feel and process the emotions, then I would have gotten sick right along with him, because that was where my focus and my thoughts had been for years. We're in the hospital constantly. The last 2 years, he didn't get out of the hospital, unfortunately. So it was in that space that I broke. It was in that space that I decided, I don't think that I believe in what we've been taught anymore. I was doing everything that I had been told. Give, 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 and eventually you're going to receive back. I have found that to also be a belief that is inaccurate, that has been conditioned within most of us. You don't give, 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 and eventually you'll get back. You give until you run out of overflow. But your cup must always be full. Your cup must always be full. It is your birthright to have a full cup. The objective is to learn how to overflow and give to others with your overflow. Well, that's completely different than what we've been taught. We've been taught to give until the cup's empty. All of us have traumatic events that we go through. The question is, are you capable of allowing these events to transform you for the better? Can you watch how you navigate through these things? Watch how you handle things. Understand that your mind's been conditioned. You're deconditioning your emotions, your thought processes, your belief structures. Everything is being picked apart right now. Just understanding that in itself will play a major role in your reality, especially when you're trying to navigate certain situations. Knowing that your mind's been conditioned allows you to forgive yourself. You're not broken, you're not flawed. You're doing things the way that you were taught to do them. It allows you to forgive other people. They're conditioned. We've all been conditioned. If they can't give you what you need, observe it, move accordingly with love. It's okay. They're on a different path. Hold the space. And it also puts the responsibility back into your hands. Every conversation that you have, all the movies that you watch, the music you listen to, this is all playing an active role in what your external reality looks like. I have affirmations all over the place. I have little sticky notes all over the place. I don't read them every day, but my subconscious mind does. I have positive things all over the place because my mind is reading that and giving it back to me. After a while, I got tired of being given back shit, so I stopped giving shit. I used to not care about that stuff. Why? Because my mind was conditioned to think I wasn't worthy. Science really will come in and save the day. It really will. Understanding the mind will come in and save the day. The beautiful part is that science and spirituality have this ability to intertwine. So scientifically, you have to understand the mind and how it works. Spiritually, you have to create a belief for yourself that works for you. So that when you're going through a traumatic event, you have something to lean on, a belief that is going to get you through that circumstance. The beliefs that most of us are harboring do not serve our survival. When we go through traumatic events, we feel alone, we feel afraid. All a result of what we've been taught. So as you can tell, the state of evolution that we're in looks a lot like unteaching ourselves and reteaching ourselves a different way of doing things, a better way of doing things. Beliefs that are more conducive to our survival. One of the biggest beliefs that I have obtained is this idea that we are multidimensional. Okay? In other words, there are worlds beyond worlds. I do believe that. Now, exactly how that looks, I don't know. I can't tell you. I went through the veil just like everybody else. Right? I can tell you that when I meditate, I go somewhere else. But I can't tell you exactly what that looks like. It's just an inner knowing, an inner belief that this is not the only world. This is not the only experience. Worlds beyond worlds exist, and this is one of them that I'm in. That is one of the beliefs that I have decided to fully adopt. And that's extremely important for me. Being here on a ball floating in space, I cannot believe that there is no rhyme or reason to the universe. I know that's not right. There's got to be something else. The second major belief that I've adopted is that there are versions of me that exist in these other worlds. This is a lot like, for those of you that are into superheroes, Marvel movies, Doctor Strange. If you haven't seen the most recent Doctor Strange, I recommend going to check it out. It's that type of concept where there are multiple versions of you in these different worlds. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying we're on a ball floating in space, and whatever you believe needs to support your survival. To me, this supported my survival because toward the tail end when my father was dying, I needed to pull on versions of myself to get through that. And we've all been there. We've all been in these situations where we are at the bottom trying to climb our way up. And let me tell you what, it is a lot easier to believe that you have support out there in the universe that's connected closely to you, that's willing to help you get out of the situation you're in, or to change, or to transform. So that was the second biggest belief, was that there are other versions of me within the universe. Now, clarifying on those two perspectives. Yes, there are many worlds, but I also believe that there is one world that is your home realm. I call this the home realm for obvious reasons. All right? There's a version of you that resides there that is perfect, that understands everything that your soul is doing, all your fragments, all your pieces, all your experiences. This version of you has a knowing that you don't have at the conscious level that we're at right now. That version of you is what I refer to as the higher self. So in other words, there are other realms. There is one particular realm that is your home realm, and there is a version of you in that home realm that has all the answers to all the questions that you have. This is what I refer to as the higher self. Now, I was in this space of void, like I had mentioned earlier, picking apart my belief structure, looking for different beliefs. I had went through my dark night of the soul. So in other words, that like complete breaking point. You know, everybody hits that point where it's like, you know, your leg is tied to a rope behind the back of a truck and the truck takes off and you just get dragged down the road, right? Like, I'm metaphorically speaking, we've all been in those spaces. So I was finally at this space where it was like the truck had stopped. I cut the rope and I'm just laying there, okay? Metaphorically speaking, of course. But I was just in this space of what the fuck just happened? Now I need to like get my shit together and figure out what I'm going to do next. So I was in this very fresh rebuild energy. I had heard this lady on YouTube and she said, talk to your higher self. And she didn't really pick it apart or say what it was. She just said, talk to your higher self. But if you are looking to communicate, then ask a question and then ask for a very specific way to see the response. So her example was, you know, I asked my higher self a question. If this is accurate, then I want to see a pink hat. And she said, you know, within, I forget, 24 or 48 hours, she saw 3 pink hats. So she's like, I knew that that was my answer. Of course, I thought in that moment, like, okay, of course I have to ask the question now, right? Like, I've already been teetering this idea of having a higher self. So if this is accurate, higher self, and you're safe and you're something I can work with and, you know, you're a version of myself, if I'm accurate in this theory, then I would like to see a sign. And boom, signs started coming in immediately. Started seeing synchronicities all the time, but undeniable. I mean, there's only so many times that you can see 444 in a one day until you're like, the first couple times you're like, oh, that's so cool. Yay, like good energy. You know, by the sixth or seventh time, you're like, somebody's fucking talking to me. I don't know what's going on, but this is crazy. You know, and I remember in that moment, there was fear coming up because I was conditioned that you don't communicate with anything that's unseen, right? Everything that has been crammed into our minds is scary. It's like you don't talk to the universe. And once you understand that you've been conditioned that way, you can kind of start picking that apart, but it does mean facing fears. So when I first started communicating with the higher self, I was facing a lot of fears because I was like, I don't know, I don't know. It takes a lot of taking deep breaths, trusting yourself, believing that you're protected, believing that you're strong enough, believing that it's your birthright to explore this type of stuff. So through this experience, this is what happens. It's kind of like your old beliefs begin opening up so that you can observe them. And then slowly, after being in that space of void for a little bit, you start implementing new beliefs. So once I ask the higher self for signs and I start getting synchronicities all over the place, I sort of realize I'm talking to somebody, something. I don't know what that looks like. I need to figure that out for myself. You realize in that moment that you are the creator and you are actively creating down here. It's just up to you as to how deep you want to go. Once I started really getting number synchronicities to the point that I couldn't miss them anymore, I started looking them up. Like, okay, I'm seeing 444 first couple times. Cool, that's awesome. After 6 or 7 times, you're like, okay, something's going on here. And then all of a sudden it hit me like, maybe I should look it up. Like, what does that mean? And so I look up 444 and it comes up, it's an angel number. So I kind of put it through the sifter, right? And I'm like, I like that idea. That makes me feel good. It's a number that's coming from, my angels. Okay, I like that. My guides, my friends, my assistants, the universe, however you want to look at that. But I loved the literature angel, so I kept that in my vocabulary. A lot of other things changed because I had conditioning attached to certain words. But I loved the idea of angels. That was always a beautiful connotation. So I would read what it means, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's funny because that resonates with, what I'm thinking. And what I realized was by looking the numbers up, you're engaging in a conversation. So your angels, your guides, the universe, your higher self will send you certain messages, and what you do with them dictates what happens next. So a lot of times, this is a lot of times with manifestation as well. The universe or your higher self will send you something, but a lot of times because of the conditioning of the mind, we won't pursue it. For example, I wanted this new vehicle. At the time, I was like, oh, well, I don't really have traditional money or credit in order to do that. So when the vehicle came into my reality, even though truthfully I completely fell in love with it, I allowed my conditioning to prohibit me from going to test drive the car because I was like, well, I can't do it. But the truth was I couldn't do it not because I didn't have the tools. I couldn't do it because I didn't allow my mind to expand enough to allow the tool to come into my reality step by step. So the higher self started working with me to have a conversation. I started slowly looking things up. I started taking steps even when I didn't know why I was taking them or even when it was creating some fear. But I always got a reward at the end of it because then you face the fear, you move through the energy, you realize a little bit more like, okay, I'm safe in trusting my higher self. Clearly my higher self wants what's best for me, right? You start experiencing little miracles. And really, you just start building this connection with yourself. However, that looks at the core of it is going to be different to everybody. But to me, it was this idea that there is a version of me in another realm that is trying to communicate with me in the ways that they can, in their language. In the beginning, that was weird because I was conditioned to think ghost. I was conditioned to think, demonic and scary. But you start realizing when you're working with the universe, there is no force. When you're working with your higher self, you're going to have to face fears, yes, but your higher self is there to work with you to face the fear. They're not the fear, which is interesting because I was always taught that, connecting with anything outside of me, that was what I was supposed to fear. The truth is, you should fear not connecting with yourself. You should fear not communicating, building a relationship with the stronger parts of yourself that reside in the universe. You have this. It's your birthright to connect with these versions of yourself. Most of us just don't realize they even exist because of the conditioning. At the end of the day, again, we're on a ball floating in space. I'm not going to tell you I'm right or wrong. What I am going to say is that I've been through some severe traumatic events, as we all have. The way I used to handle them, when I felt that I was alone and I had no answers, the way that I handle them now, where I immediately call on the higher self, I immediately check in with myself, I immediately draw on my energies to try to find clarity and guidance. I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. I don't feel like I'm not capable anymore. I don't feel like I don't have answers. I do have answers. I do. I may not consciously have them. I may have to take a second to check in with myself and get them from my higher self, but I have the answers. That's a belief that all of us have to have. And this is why it is so beautiful to be alive at this time, because this is one of the core beliefs that are beginning to become readily available to everybody. And understanding science is allowing people to open up on a spiritual tip and understand, oh, I have a plethora of options regarding what I want to believe about this world. What works for me? I wouldn't recommend to continue believing the things we've been taught, but I would hold the space if that's an experience that somebody has to have. But I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you're looking to live a happier, healthier lifestyle. If you're looking to communicate with your higher self, the first thing you have to do is explore the idea that we are multidimensional. You got to start there. You can't really have a relationship with your higher self if you think that this is the only world. So you got to start there. Play with that belief. Absorb that. Understand that. Feel that. It's going to be uncomfortable because it's way outside of what we've been taught. So sit there for a few moments. Observe that. Play with it. Really check in with yourself. How do you feel about that belief? That this is not the only world out in the universe. Some of you might be like, I don't know. Others of you might be like, oh yeah. Right, so it depends. Everybody's in a different space in their journey. But play with that belief. The second thing is believing that there are versions of you, more versions of you that exist out there in the universe. You can feel it, right? What about when you meet somebody and you know you've seen them before? You know they're familiar even though you don't know where you know them from? We've all had those experiences. Why do you think that is? All right, so play with that idea that you exist outside of this here and now. By playing with those beliefs, you will naturally build a relationship with that higher self version of you. And once that starts, get ready because it is so much fun. I kid you not, it is so much fun. I would never go back. I'm out front in my yard talking to myself, laughing. I'm like, geez, everybody would think I was crazy. But is that really crazy? Probably not. It's healthy as shit because I'm outside connecting with a version of myself that runs the universe. So you tell me who's crazy. So for those of you that are taking these jumps, taking these leaps of faith, keep going. You're not crazy. You're not wild. You're not weird. You are absolutely beautiful and authentic. And we need more of that. Don't let anybody tell you you're not good enough. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't believe this or you can't do that. Absolutely not. Listen, I hold the space. I love you. If you want to limit yourself, that's fine. I get it. I hold the space for you. But you cannot limit me any longer. Right? Take back your mind. Take back your thoughts. Take back your beliefs. We're on a ball floating in space. What do you want to believe? I believe that you are much bigger than what you've been taught. You know why? Because I believe that I'm much bigger than what I've been taught. Every relationship you have in your world and your reality is going to be a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. Go big. You're not this small, tiny fragment. You're much bigger than this. So I hope that this assisted you in playing with this idea of a higher self and what that looks like. For now, I just wanted to put a broader spectrum of the universe out here in your mind's eye, so that you can start playing with this idea about how big you truly are, because you really are beautiful and gorgeous, and there are so many moving pieces to you that we are not conditioned to remember in this consciousness. But luckily, we are here during the best time to be alive on Earth, and it's time to wake up. It's time to remember that you are amazing and gorgeous, and you're here for a purpose, every single one of us. You are here for a bigger purpose than what you're aware of. So keep on keeping on. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Keeps me moving in the right direction. Also, feel free to hop over to my website at www.innersarah.com. You can subscribe that way so that you get notified when my book comes out. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this space with me. I appreciate you more than you know. I am back here every Monday for a read with SJ. If you're into card readings, you like that kind of thing, we have a lot of fun over there. So you can check out the rest of my channel for some of those videos. And then, of course, I am right back here every Wednesday with you for another phone call with freedom.